Hello everyone, and welcome to Community Connection, your window to the world around you. I have some amazing women with me today, entrepreneurs. We have Janette Ghedotte, who is the president of Accurate Body Language, Joyce Weiss, who is the author and president of Training and Development LLC, and Gwendolyn Davis-Yancey, who is CEO of Mindshift Consortium. All wonderful titles, and we're going to learn about what they do today. Janette, welcome to Community Connection. You actually were a guest and a speaker at the Images and Perceptions Diversity Conference.
Amazing conference.
Thank you. And you talked about accurate body language and what that means and what that translates really non-verbally. And I always think that's very amazing. Tell us a little bit about what you do and really the signs in regards to, you know, what the body language tells you and what you're doing and, you know, everything else that happens.
Well, I tell everybody that all of us are body language experts, and we were body language experts when we were babies, before we could articulate words. So we already have what it takes to be body language experts, and my job is to have us become fluent again in our biological
More
language.
cognizant of our surroundings.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yes.
Well, you know, when you're in a business meeting or even, you know, talking with someone, and you can tell whether they're accepting of what you say or not. And you know, sometimes when you do one of these jobs, it's like, you know, I'm not quite sure I'm
Yes.
buying what you're telling me, or even like, okay, you know, let's get this on the
Yes,
on the
both
road,
of those
right?
would be hot spots or body tells.
Absolutely. And again, too, when you speak about being culturally competent in regards to body language, you know, there's quite a bit of difference from someone maybe that might be coming overseas that would translate what the body language is. There's, and I do this in my diversity training sessions, and I talk about this because it's amazing. When somebody sits down and crosses their legs and their shoe is like out to the
Yes.
open, that's very insulting in certain communities and certain cultures, because your shoe is actually on the floor in the dirt.
That is one of my main tips.
And it's very, for instance, in Lebanon, that's a very insulting thing. It's like, you know, you're not respecting that individual that's sitting next to you, so your foot has to actually be down. But in the States, of course, that's not an issue, but it depends on your experience and where you're coming from. So I know you recently did a boot camp too. So
Yes.
what were some of the things you taught in your boot camp?
Well, we were just discussing some of the highlights of it right before we went on. And one of the main tips is have your eyes, your heart, your navel, and your toes facing your client or the person of interest. If you were interviewing us for a job and you noticed if our eyes, our heart, our navel, and our toes are not pointed to you or the person asking the question, you should make a note.
That means indifference, maybe. You're not giving that
Yes.
person your total attention.
Yes, total attention is eyes, heart, navel, and toes to the subject.
And it's look,
Listen, and learn.
Look, listen, and learn. Okay.
When we're actively engaging with our clients and the people that we're talking to, we learn so much when we look, listen, and learn. That's why I had my wonderful props to remind us that we need to engage our eyes, ears, mouth, smell, and touch. A simple handshake in some cultures is not appropriate if it's, you know, for certain genders. But we Americans may not know that, so it's critically important, and thank you for putting on the conference to make sure all of us are more aware and more mindful of cultural differences.
Absolutely, and it's so important. And cultural competency in society is so important, and especially living in the United States, because there's, you know, it's not a melting pot. I'll never make that mistake again. I had Edward James Olmos, who was a presenter at the conference a couple of years ago, and I told him, I said, well, you know, we live in a melting pot. And he goes, Siham, don't you dare tell me that that's a melting pot. And I go, oh my God, I just teed off Edward James Olmos. What the heck did I do?
What did he teach
He goes,
you?
well, he taught me that we're not a melting pot. We're a fruit salad.
Oh!
Everybody has their own
That's
texture,
cute.
their own shape, their own color. And when you put them all together, it looks like a beautiful bowl. And so, you know, and I transformed thinking we're not a melting pot, because we all do come with our you know, certain experiences and culture, and that's what makes it all great. Because a whole bowl of grapes is not as exciting as grapes and watermelon and you know, everything else that goes in it. So he taught me that, and so I will take that with me quite a bit.
You know, I've got to add something, because at the conference, when Janette, when you brought up the handshake, the audience just talked about engagement, because there were so many fruit salads there, you know, pieces of fruit in the fruit salad. You heard people from all kinds of cultures, not just talk about it. Oh, it was people at my table. I kept saying, "Hush, hush, Janette is talking," but we were getting into this an unbelievable learning
On a simple
experience.
handshake or no handshake.
Right. It was amazing to me to watch this.
And really, it's about accepting those cultures and allowing them to enrich your life, rather than you know, say, well, that's strange. Why do they do that? You know, and engaging and especially the different dances and what have you. I mean, I just love doing different dances from cultures, because you know, first of all, you get some exercise, and second of all, you become in tuned to what you know makes them happy, and it's really a beautiful thing. Joyce, you are an author, and you are president of training and development, and so you're geared towards the business community, correct? So tell us a little bit about what you do, and also this wonderful book that you've written called "Take the Ride of Your Life," and I love the illustration here too. This is wonderful. So tell us about this. It is. It's a happy book, and the kind of work that you do.
Well, I talk about tough stuff, meaning I'm a communication strategist and coach, and I help leaders and their employees have tough conversations, whether it's dealing with bullies. I just added narcissists a couple of years ago, because how you laughed, that's what everybody talks about it now. But what do I do with them? So the tough conversations and the tough topics, the thing is, as you held up the book, I do it a little differently than some of the other consultants, because I add fun to it. Because when it's all over, to me the most important thing, the takeaway, is for people to improve their quality of life. They can't have a good quality of life, and that's one of the reasons why I wrote Take the Ride of Your Life, which is about work-life balance. If they go back home and talk about these unresolved conversations, and we were talking about cultures, and I just received 3 phone calls from 3 new clients who have cultures from different parts of the world, for me to teach their people how to deal with the boss. I can't, because I was taught not to be open and to respect. And Americans were known as being a little more aggressive than some of these cultures. So my role was to have, like you were talking about with Janette, Siham, is to have people take down the walls. It's different equals different. Different does not equal wrong. And I don't mean to raise my voice, but I just did. That to me,
raising your voice means you're passionate about what you do. So I love it,
and
we love it.
And I need to tone, because I am. I love what I do. It's obvious when my veins stick out. I talk about body language. And people know, and they understand that when I say you get what you tolerate, I end that up with every single one of my blogs. I always say, this is Joyce Weiss, until next time, you get what you tolerate.
I love that.
And people, I said, what does this mean to you? And if people say, oh, well, I'm shy and I'm not getting promotions, because I also work with people who want to continuously improve and get those promotions, all I have to say is you get what you tolerate.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And they get it.
And you know, I took your quiz.
Oh,
I did.
Good.
I took your quiz. I got a 45. which I think is a good score.
Oh, it's an
isn't it?
excellent score. Yes.
Yes.
Thumbs up is okay in this culture.
So I thought that was, I mean, the questions were very precise in terms of, exactly, you get what you tolerate, and being able to express yourself in a way where you don't end up in opposition, or you don't end up in an aggressive conversation, because there is a way to communicate that, and a power struggle, because when you deal with someone with respect, and you show them their self-worth, and you try to explain or talk about what needs to be done in a very respectful, very common sense oriented conversation, I think you can get further than saying, you know what, I don't like what you did. You did that wrong. This is how it needs to be done. And people do not react, positively towards that. So those questions were very, very in place, and I loved them. So I took the test.
You did, and I got to say, one thing about what you just said. I'm going to North Dakota Monday, speaking with a group of presidents and CEOs who work at credit unions. And I interviewed 4 people. I do that for every single program. And every single one of the CEOs said that how I confront bullies, I said, oh, tell me, is I give them kindness, something they're not used to. And I about fell off my chair, because these were on the phone, the interviews were on the phone. And that's really so important, to do something different. And if you're pushing them, they're going to push back. They're great at that.
Absolutely.
But I've got to say one disclaimer about this, Siham, is that there are times when whatever you learn from people like myself or other strategists in communication, sometimes you're not going to be able to get through to them. If you're working with the narcissist, and they're here on the scale instead up here, maybe so, to set boundaries, and figuring out how you can do that. There are going to be times, and trust me, in my own life, when I've already decided, okay, whatever I say, this person's so closed, and they're so selfish, and they're so into themselves, they don't really care about you or respect. It doesn't happen often, but I always
tell people. So what do you do in
people,
those kind of situations when you know that there's really no way to reach this person, or to make them understand that their ways are not, working within a corporate entity, or even within society? How do you deal with someone like that?
Love the question. 2 things. If it's your personal life, it's sometimes a little easier, because you could put up a boundary.
Distance yourself. Absolutely.
Well, and you could say, okay, if that person says something, I'm going to accidentally take my cup and say, oh, I need to get some more coffee, and leave. That's not going to happen at work.
No.
Then again, if you're an employee, or if you're a colleague to a colleague and you're dealing with a narcissist, you have to try some of these techniques by expressing, I call them safe conversations. I'm frustrated when we have a conversation because it seems like my ideas aren't being listened to. Yay, that works with most people. If it doesn't, and you've tried some of the things that I teach, then you have to just say, okay, I've got to concentrate on some other people that I can work with. And I'd hate to say, but sometimes when I have the presidents call me and they say, Joyce, what are we going to do with this person? I don't ever say my job is to have you see if they need to be fired or not. That's not what I do. I do say, do what you can to send the person to classes, have them take the assessments that we give at Joyce Weiss Communication Training and Development. If not, then you know what you have to do. But there's not, I wish I could say it's like I'm a politician here.
There isn't a quick fix. I mean, some people just have to find out on their own and heal.
Journey.
And heal on their own, absolutely. And sometimes we just don't know what their experiences are and why they got to where they are. And so sometimes that takes a little bit longer to find out, and sometimes therapy, therapy is important, and it's not just in the way that you communicate with them. It's their underlying issues that they have. So yeah, that's an amazing area within itself. And we have Gwen with us today, and Gwen is CEO of Mindshift Consortium. Mindshift Consortium, what a title. Talk to me about that.
And I was listening to what you were saying. The people that are in the workplace or whether they're in the workplace or they're at home or anywhere, we all are bringing our stories.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And we many times don't know how to walk on our stories. We walk in our stories. And those are the people that don't know how to be, say, for instance, in the workplace, and be around different people that have different types of issues because they don't even understand why they think the way that they think. And they keep having these repetitive behaviors. So that's kind of where the mind shift coach come in.
I
You
love
know,
the
your
name
mind
of
shift
that.
coach, you know, because, you know, what I do is I help people identify what mindsets do they need to shift so that they can eliminate success blockers. And so that they can
So it's
eliminate.
like not bringing your baggage to work kind of thing.
And people don't know how to do that.
Right.
And the problem
clearing
is,
the baggage.
you know,
Starting-
when people think about relationships, they're thinking maybe, you know, husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, things of that nature. But they're really, besides the relationship that you have with yourself, there's 4 relationship venues: your personal, family, business, and workplace. And we're walking around with all those personal relationship venues within us, and toxicity that's within all of those, and it's hard to navigate. Now you're at the workplace and you're dealing with your boss, you're dealing with coworkers, and we're all bringing them in, you know, we're all intermingling, and people don't know and don't have the skills to navigate and manage that toxicity. You know, people have come to me and they, oh, I need a business coach, I need a business coach. And I clearly understand that. And when we sit and talk, what they really needed was a mind shift coach, because their underlying issues were personal, and it was affecting their capability. And we're talking about, you know, executives, high levels executives, and they were operating at a high level. They wanted to go higher, but because of personal issues that they were bringing to the table, even though the people didn't know they were bringing it to the table, they didn't know what was going on.
You know, I'm a certified mediator, and I do mediation for the Wayne Mediation Center. I sit on the board of directors as vice president, but I will tell you, I do a lot of different things, but that has got to be the most satisfying thing that I've ever done.
Yes.
Because when I sit and we do mediations, I've done 8 to 10 hour mediations, and you're not there for the reason that's on paper.
Yes.
You're there
Yes.
because there was some underlying issues, and somebody's upset with somebody else, and they're using this particular situation to get back at that person, and that's
Very
why it sort of takes
emotional.
8 to 10 hours.
Yes.
And it's the mind shift of, you know, okay, this is the estate, and this is, well, it's not about the estate. It's about the fact that this person did this to you 3
Absolutely.
years ago, and this is why you're emotionally reacting to the situation, and creating, you know, this legal issue. And so once we talk that out,
Yes.
and then you find out, and you know, talk, well, how are you feeling about this? You know, why do you feel this is important? And it comes up more times than not. This isn't important. I was angry because this person did this to me, and I cannot tell you how many mediations ended up with, you know, people walking out just hugging each other
Yeah.
and crying.
Isn't that
Because
so gratifying?
Exactly, and it's like that's years of therapy right there. But
Right.
when you have them face to face, and you know, and talking about, you know, why they're feeling like this. So basically, if I'm understanding, that's, I mean, you change your mind shift, because
Right.
they're walking in there and they want to talk about the estate, and they want to talk about their rights, and yet the whole conversation shifts,
It
to
shifts.
something
Yes,
totally
yes,
different,
yes.
and it's a totally different mindset.
It
kind of thing.
is, because our mindsets are based on our experiences.
And then also with the body language, you know, you see when they're talking to each other,
Right.
and you know, somebody has tears in their eyes, or somebody's going like that, and
They're
you know,
communicating
Right.
more.
right,
Absolutely.
that what that person is
Than you
saying
realize.
is really, you know, really resonating in the other individual, and so you just, you know, you
just-
focus in on that, because you know that
Yes.
conversation is going to happen.
Absolutely.
Really, the conflict is just the tip of the iceberg. So
Got
what
that.
all of us do around this table is we take it from the tip of the iceberg and get deeper. And I love hearing all 3 of your stories about how you really help clients.
Well, it's just an emotional thing as
Yes.
well.
Or
I mean, you
emotional.
just feel like, you know, you have these individuals that come in with the body language and they're just looking at, you know, looking at the other, you know, people, and sometimes you have 5 or 6
the
people, and the
energy.
emotions and the energy, you know, that
feel the
comes
energy.
from that, and then, you know, and they just want to kill each other, and then they
Yes.
walk out hugging and, you know, crying. It's like, wow, you know, and that's really the human story,
Yes,
you know,
yes,
because we
yes.
all have that baggage.
Absolutely.
And unless we put it on the table and sort it out, it stays inside of us, and that's what you do in terms of body language, because when people are not apt to, you know, talk about what they're feeling and be able to be expressive, it all gets bottled up, you know. And the same thing with, you know, narcissists at work. I mean, they have that
Favorite
baggage, and they
behavioral style.
right, and sometimes you get through them, and then sometimes they need, you know, they need more situation, and your mind shift. I mean, all these different things are very, very, very pertinent in the business world,
Yes.
in the social world, and in your personal, you know, in your personal life. As an author, what do you talk to us in this book? Take the Ride of Your Life. What does this actually tell us?
It's all about our bike story. If you think about that,
I got to get my bike fixed. Okay, go ahead. I'm listening.
I'm
gonna
gonna-
get my
I get
tire.
back on my bike.
Actually,
good.
we are really going to talk after the show because I want to interview you about your bike story.
okay.
What I mean by that is, when you think about that time in your life when you learned how to ride your first 2-wheel bike without training wheels, that one story, if you really go deep, we're talking about going deep, your story is who you are today. So, for example, there was a woman in
I like that.
in the Take the Ride of Your Life.
Cheryl.
That no, I won't. Actually, her name is Nancy, and she actually allowed me to use her real name. And her bike story was very sad. Her father said, just go out and buy your own bike, and leave me alone. Teach yourself. So she had to. It took her 3 years to get money to buy her own bike. She had to teach herself. Years later, come up to today, she is one of the most independent women
Yes.
that I know.
I was going
Best
to
thing
say
her
that.
dad did.
Her issues with men have been an issue.
Yes.
Issues with men have been an issue.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
And she's still working on that. So when we think
And
about
it sort of helps you in one way, but scars you in another when things
Yes.
don't
Yes.
work on a normal.
if it's a negative bike
Sure.
story, but there are a lot of people that have just some. I mean, the book is full of the positive, the negative. What did they learn from it? Who they are as a result. And the bottom line is, I want people to learn how to take care of themselves.
Yes.
Because it's something.
Be resilient.
My challenge in life is finding personal solitude. Jeanette has heard this speech at least 4 times. She's
relate.
come and she's listened to me, and I'm not alone. There are a lot of people who are workaholics, and whether you're a CEO or you're not, you put your heart and your soul in your
All
family.
of us on this table.
There's no time for you. So that's what Take the Ride of Your Life is about, is how to find your bike story and how to make it work for you. Making time for yourself is not a luxury, it's a necessity.
Yeah.
And that's something that's what I talk about. And even when we're talking about tough conversations, they're all tied together.
Sure,
All of them.
absolutely. I mean, just the
I'm sitting
same.
here
in-
thinking about my bike story.
Yes.
I love that.
Yes,
Thank you. Yes.
Absolutely. But in terms of the mind shift, what kind of issues have you dealt with? What kind of situations have you gone into where you've actually been able to change the workplace environment because of your message to them?
Well, one of the things that I am focusing on right now is what I call labels. We all have, or most of us anyway, have certain things that have been said to us, either as we were growing up, even in our young adult years, that may not seem like it was a big deal,
But it
but
sticks.
it stuck with us,
Sure.
and it made us think a certain way about ourselves. So whether it's dealing with weight, whether it's dealing with complexion, whether it's dealing with something like,
Self-image.
you're a
Sure.
slob, you're messy. You may not think anything about it. You may just think as a parent or relative or something like that, a teacher or something, oh, you're just making a statement. But if that's repetitive, it needs to be drawn out.
How do you do that? How
Well,
do you draw that?
I have a two-step process. One is dealing with what I call empowerment DNA blueprint. And what I mean by that is, one, you've got to figure out what are you dealing with. What is the mindset? And you there's so many different mindsets. You know, we all don't think the same way about various issues. So it's a process of not re-experiencing situations, but being able to almost look at it from a distance and analyze it, so that you can then pick out, because we can have negative experiences that could be the foundation for us becoming an author, us becoming, starting a business or things like that. So you can still take some positive things out of even negative experiences. But if there's something that is really a success blocker, then we move to what I call the meditative interventions replacement imagery. And it really, when you were talking about earlier today, sensory, the different senses, we have things that remind us of situations, whether it's a smell, whether it's something we touch, whether it's something we see or something we hear.
It brings back
and it can bring
memories.
us back to something
Memories.
that can cause us to stop, and it can affect our progression. So really, meditative intervention replacement imagery are tools to teach you really how to rewire your brain.
And it can be positive or negative
Yes,
too. 'Cause when I drink,
absolutely.
That sounds neuroscience.
it's funny when I drink Welch's grape juice. I just stand there and it reminds me of my childhood for some
Yes.
reason.
Yes.
Welch's grape juice will remind me of mine, and I just smile and it makes me feel good. And it's just
Yes.
grape
Yes.
juice, and so that's that's
With
the
memories.
mindset exactly.
Yes.
And if I see a mouse, I will jump. I will totally jump. But I think something happened in my childhood where it was a very negative experience, and so all those things, and I, with my son. He has such a messy room, and I remind him of that. And when you just said, you're so messy, and I tell him that a lot, and I need to change my mind
reframe
shift
it.
Yes.
and reframe that, because I'm sure because I've told
the
him that
positive
so
you
much,
Yes.
he probably thinks, what the hell, I am that. So
Yes.
I have that title, and
Yes.
I'm gonna live up to that,
Yes.
to that, to that title and to that
Yes.
reputation. So definitely a different mind shift.
And even with that example, in the business world,
And I love
that
him
can
dearly.
affect your business progress, because you can think, well, messy, unorganized, and you could even be a CEO but have a certain level of disorganization that you wouldn't have to have if that hadn't been implanted. You know what I mean?
Right, right. And some people just operate. When my desk is clean, I go, oh no, I don't know where anything is. I have to have.
There you go.
So
That's the way my husband is.
it
Don't touch
depends,
anything.
Right, exactly. You just know where everything is. So,
Yeah.
any last comments?
No, accurate body language helps people spot the lies, get to the truth, and avoid costly mistakes. And
Absolutely.
we have those skills within us already.
Well, I think with the three of you wonderful ladies, entrepreneurs, your areas of expertise are very much intertwined.
Yes,
and
we're all
Yes,
interconnected.
really
all
are.
Absolutely,
of our
absolutely.
contributions.
And it's wonderful to see and take the ride of your life. I
got
love
it.
it, and I got to read about Cheryl and Nancy and everybody and Brian
Yes,
that are in
yes.
here, and find out exactly what their bike rides were like.
And your story.
And my
And
story.
share your story.
Yes.
It was wonderful, Jeanette, to
Thank
have
you
you
so
on
much.
Community Connection.
Thank you
and I'm
so
going to
much.
reach
Thank you
all the way
so
over there.
much.
Thank
I
you,
appreciate
Gwen.
it.
Gwen, Joyce, and Jeanette, some fabulous women here on Community Connection. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.